Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Aquarius for October 2015. Go to my website, aspiritualspark.com, where you can see more about my current offerings and become part of my email community by signing up for my free email newsletter, where you get all kinds of perks, starting from the time you sign up. So what's going on in October? We've got all kinds of stuff that have carried over from previous months. We've got all kinds of stuff that are current to October, and lots of stuff to talk about. So we're going to talk about some things specific to Aquarius, and we're going to talk about some things that are general transits to look out for. So we start out the month still with Mercury in retrograde. Mercury is going to be in retrograde until October 9th, but the shadow period lasts until October 24th. So that 23rd, 24th is the date that I am giving as kind of your free to launch things time. So Venus retrograde shadow carries over from September into October. Just as Mercury is going direct, the Venus shadow period is clearing up, so we've been waiting for this time. And then you've got a little bit of awkwardness with Mercury until you get to around October 23rd, 24th, and then you're free to do all the things that you haven't been able to do for many months. So that's very exciting. And there's a huge focus in the sky of many planets in the 8th house for Aquarius. And for those of you who are early Aquarius placements, your birthday is early in the sign, or your rising sign if you're watching for that, or your moon sign is at an early degree placement, then you already have this huge focus in the 8th house. For you middle to later degree placements, what I'm about to talk about is going to come for you too very soon. So definitely listen, and you might see it's warming up. And it might take a little bit more time to get front and center for you, but it's coming, kind of like when you smell fall in the air. Where I live, it's super hot, and so we basically like sweat in humidity for 6 months out of the year. But there's that time that comes in October, and in August, and it came recently, and I was like, do you smell that? Do you feel that? That's fall. It's coming. Now in the meantime, it turned out to be 93 degrees that day. And so someone who wasn't subtly in tune to those things would be like, you're crazy, it's like 500 degrees. So I sent a friend of mine a text saying, fall is in the air, did you smell it? And she sent a text back saying, I just told my husband that fall is in the air, and he told me that I was crazy because I felt it too. So it's like that. Sensitive people can feel something coming, even if other people aren't paying attention. It's still, there's that whatever it is that's coming. And that's how what I'm about to describe is for you later degree placements and some of you middle degree placements, okay? This strong focus in the 8th house is either front and center or about to be front and center. The 8th house covers many things, but the area of focus I want to talk about today is investing and things having to do with money, because the 8th house has to do with investments and shoring up your financial future. And when you have all of these energies from all of these planets in this house, this is an amazing time to start to, or to continue or go deeper into this energy of investing. Something that I want to share that is something to really consider with the 8th house is something I read in an article, and I've seen things like this before. A 25-year-old who eats breakfast at home and brown bags their lunch, so they make their lunch and they don't go out to eat breakfast or lunch, can save a minimum of $10 a day. If they invested that money, they could have over $1 million by the time they're 67. Now, when you're 25, a lot of people aren't thinking about when they're going to be 67, but this 8th house is like that. It's like, it's asking those bigger, deeper questions of life and birth and death and, legacies and taking care of, your family, and what happens if, something happens to you where you're working, and, just all of these kind of questions about death, because Pluto rules the 8th house, and life also, birth and death and, grandkids and children and all of these kind of things. So the magic of compounding is just this principle. I remember when I was, it would probably be 7 or 8, my dad taught me about investing. And he, as soon as I was really adept at reading, he had me reading the Wall Street Journal. when I was that age. And actually, I would invest chore money, which my parents would match, in the stock market when I was that age. And by the time I was 23 and buying my first house, so how many years is that? It's like 15 years. From just those little bits of whatever, I mean, you can imagine, you know, a while ago how much chore money was. It wasn't very much. I don't know how they got away with it, right? They had us working like dogs for no money. Anyway, just kidding. So I had enough money to pay for a house in cash when I was 23 years old because of the magic of compounding. And the magic of compounding is part of this 8th house. So really wrapping your brain around, wow, if I put this little bit of money here, because a lot of times people don't save or invest because they think, I don't really have any money to invest, so why am I going to bother? But this 8th house and this story in your chart, this month and this period of time coming, Jupiter is bringing a bigger long-term story of this topic, and the personal planets are bringing a more heightened focus in the short term. So whether you're early, middle, or late degree placement, this fall time is going to have massive amounts of quick-moving planets in this field of experience. So it's making it more current, but the theme is one that is going to strengthen over time because Jupiter's presence is going to expand your focus here. So I wanted to illustrate this point of compounding because once you I still can't even wrap my brain around why it works that way, but just putting a little bit away turns into something big. I also remember my dad telling me this story about this guy who was a janitor at a local school, and when he passed away, his heirs found out that he was actually a millionaire because he did so well with investing his very meager income, and that's the magic of compounding. So get into understanding the magic of compounding, and it's not just compounding with money and investments, although that is the first topic that I brought us here with, but the 8th house is the house of other things that are less tangible. You know, if anyone who's ever studied stocks, they're not tangible, they're crazy making if you try to figure out like what is actually going on with that. It's very intangible, and the 8th house is the house of intangible types of things. That's why it rules investing that way. So esoteric topics about birth and death and afterlife and, you know, deep psychological study and mysteries of every kind, those are all in the 8th house. So those are other areas where you might be doing this compounding. So if you study, and even astrology is covered in 2 houses. One is Aquarius and one is Scorpio, which is the 8th house. Different aspects of it are in different places. But the psychological aspects of astrology are in the 8th house. So again, with the compounding, like if you are studying one of these things, then the more you go, your gains start expanding astronomically and astrologically. Anyway, so that's what the focus is here, is like where you can put little bits of energy over time, and the effects are cumulative. And meditation is another one of those things. And this is something else that you can look into. So you can meditate for 10 minutes a day. And even I've heard people who do yoga and know a lot about yoga will say, okay, if you can't make it to a class and you do 10 minutes of yoga a day, the effects are actually cumulative. And that's the magic of compounding. So that's our theme for this month for Scorpio. And there are other ways that you could look at financial things, you know, like having a budget and looking at your credit report and starting savings accounts and different things that have to do with money. So let's talk about some of the more general transits. We talked about a few things with Mercury and Venus. Venus has been taking a strong focus in our astrology since the end of June, when Venus's pre-retrograde shadow period started at the end of June. Then Venus went into retrograde at the end of July 25th, and then it ended, the retrograde ended, or will end, depending on when you're watching this, around September 6th. And then from September 6th through October 9th, we had the post-retrograde shadow period. The post-retrograde shadow periods are like this, you know, leftover energy where things are not quite right. I always talk about making a U-turn, and the post-shadow period is like when you're gaining speed, but you're not back up to the 60 miles an hour you were at before you made a U-turn. You're kind of like getting speed back up, and it's still a little bit awkward and annoying. That's what the post-retrograde is like. So Venus rules love, beauty, and money. This retrograde only happens once every 18 months. So essentially for 4 months, every 18 months, we've got this Venus in retrograde thing. So we've been talking Venus in retrograde, blah, 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 Venus, Venus, Venus for months. And now in the month of October, we have Venus making aspects to 4 of our outer planets. We've got on October 10th, we have a square of Venus to Saturn, challenging aspect, bringing reality checks. We've got October 16th, we have an opposition to Neptune, bringing chaos and confusion to all things involving love, beauty, and money. But then on October 23rd, we have Venus in this brilliant aspect with Pluto. And I always think of when Venus is in a positive aspect to a planet that might otherwise be grumpy or scary, I see her as like flirting with that planet and kind of getting their best behavior. You know, the big behemoth of a planet, they're on their best behavior, you know, and they use their power for all this good. And that period of time, October 23rd, October 24th, we've got Venus doing that with Pluto, and then we have Venus conjuncting Jupiter, and Jupiter is like luck and benevolence and expansion. So I really like, I'm saying October 23rd and October 24th for launching things, because on October 25th, besides that beautiful aspect with Venus and Jupiter, we also have Mercury opposing Uranus. So even though there's really good energy on that day, there's going to be some awkwardness with communication and jolting news or information that comes out of the blue or events that come out of the blue. Uranus in an opposition always rules something, well, Uranus in general rules something that comes out of the blue. But when it's in an opposition, it's like something uncomfortable. But you don't have to let that uncomfortable thing, and it would be advisable to not let that uncomfortable thing interfere with all the good stuff you've got going on. If you've been waiting all this time to launch something new, you want to try to not let things that might come in interfere with what you're doing. And for some of you that will be really easy, because the news that'll come in will be annoying but not really a big deal. Like you might feel jolted to your core, but it might be something short term. Some of you might have a carryover of news coming from eclipse-related things, which can be very monumentally transformational. But still, either way, you've got to find the equanimity within yourself to maximize the use of the positive planets at this time, because we've been waiting a long time for this. And if you're trying to do something to make your future better and brighter, then you want to take advantage of the positive aspects that we have here. Because Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde that we've just gone through for months, you know, for a long time, you know, it was Mercury retrograde, then Venus retrograde, then Mercury retrograde. It wasn't the time to launch new things. It was the time to do more with old things, but not bring brand new things out. And this is your time to bring brand new things out. So we've got a new moon in Libra on October 12th. We've got the full moon in Taurus on October 27th. Libra always brings, or new moon in Libra brings new opportunities in relationship. And many of you are going to experience that energy of new moon actually in your 8th house, where everything else is going on too. So there's just a lot of energy there. And the full moon in Taurus, you know, leave a little room around the full moons, October 27th, for some emotional things to come up. But in general, once that passes, we end off the month on this awesome note with this beautiful aspect with Sun and Neptune. Brings just this ethereal liftoff is what I'm calling it. So, you know, into those dimensions where things get cloudy and life and death all kind of blend into one. So it's a wonderful way to end off the month. And I hope that you have a wonderful October. Definitely go to my website, aspiritualspark.com, to see a list of my current offerings. And you definitely want to sign up for my free email newsletter and become part of my community and get the monthly write-up that I do for the month ahead, which includes a lot of things that I don't have time to talk about in the horoscopes. So take care. Bye.